Production funding for Behind the Headlines is made possible in part by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland tonight on Behind the Headlines. I'm Eric Barnes, President and Executive Editor of the Daily Memphian. Thanks for joining us. I am joined tonight by Jim Strickland, Mayor of Memphis. Thanks for being here again.
Thanks for having me.
Along with Bill Dries, reporter with the Daily Memphian. Let's start. It is election season, and I should say we're taping this on Tuesday, just given scheduling and a lot going on in election season. But as of, we're in early voting, and there are charter amendments that are getting a lot of attention. And what is your take? Let's start with the term limits, which you are term limited to 2. What is your take? How are you going to vote personally? Are you recommending people vote on charter?
I'm not recommending any position on any of them. I will say that if the extension of the term limits from 2 to 3 passes, it will have no effect on me. At most, I will run for 2 terms.
But let's go do it this way. You were on the council for 2 terms.
Yes.
Would it have made sense to be there on a 3rd? Martavis Jones was on recently and talked about how there's a learning curve. He's a current city council person in favor of extending the term limits. Would there have been value to be there for 3 years, 3 terms?
Oh, I think so. I think so. I think that there's some legitimacy to that. That it's a part-time job as a council member, and it is awfully hard to get up to speed, especially on the details of the budget, which is kind of overwhelming and that sort of thing. So I think that's a legitimate argument. Right.
Former Mayor Willie Harrington made some news recently about claiming that this, in part, was crafted to keep him from running for mayor. He's declared that he's going to run next year. You have not declared, I believe, whether or not you'll be running again. But and he accused, I think, your administration of being part of that. Did your administration have any part in crafting the charter amendment at all?
No, we didn't. The council came up with the idea. The council drafted it, and the council even sent it to the election commission. We were not involved in any of that process. Alan Wade has confirmed that.
Alan Wade being the attorney for the city
council. He's confirmed all that, and I think Berlin Boyd has confirmed all that. So we had nothing to do with conceiving the idea or drafting it or sending it to the election commission. This was all council driven, and that's what the facts are.
Just a quick civics lesson. Can the mayor of Memphis propose a charter amendment?
Oh, yeah.
But it still has to go through council?
Absolutely, yes. We could propose something just like we propose ordinances and a budget, but the council has to approve it.
You can't get them on the ballot of your own, through your own authority?
Correct. Okay. I mean, I hope that Mayor Harrington or anyone else who wants to run for mayor gets that opportunity.
Okay. Bill?
One more question on this. When you were on the council, you served in a single member district, which those are the only positions in city government that currently have a runoff provision, meaning if no one gets a majority in the race, it goes to a runoff election between the top 2. Do you think that should remain?
I'm not going to give my opinion on it. I actually lost one time, did not get into the runoff. So I guess I've never been in a runoff. I've been in 3 city council races and never was in a runoff. But just like the governor's race or Senate race or state offices, I'm not endorsing anyone. I'm not going to endorse in these ballot initiatives. They're really council driven, and I think they're making a strong case on their own.
Mm-hmm. When you talk about the instant runoff, is instant runoff voting, I mean, I've heard some people say, and we had Steve Mulroy and Martavis Jones on recently talking about this, there is a problem of, if you get to that point where you have to do a runoff, that second election is a tiny turnout. Is there a better solution to that? That from you've been in elected office forever. Is there a problem there that needs to be addressed in some fashion? Let me put it that way.
I don't know. I don't understand instant voter runoff enough to be able to explain it to someone else. So I don't know if that's a good solution to the issue or not.
But is there an issue there that you've got to go to this runoff where people don't turn out?
I've not seen an issue.
Okay.
I've not experienced that, but if there's I'm always open to better ways.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it enough to be able to explain it.
Let's shift to economic development, an issue that you have been very much, and you've had a stand and a take and so on. It's been a big hallmark of your mayoral term for 3 years now, coming up on 3 years. And there's a lot of talk right now about how various groups involved with economic development, the recruitment and retention of companies to Memphis should interact. There's the mayor's office, there's the county mayor's office, there's the Chamber of Commerce, there's EDGE, which administers and grants pilots. You could even argue then there's the council and commission and so on. But just in terms of, there's just a whole lot of players and a lot of conversation and proposals about streamlining that process. First, should that process be streamlined, and in what fashion, if so?
Yeah, but before that, I think we got to kind of look at, I think things have improved significantly in the last 2.5 years. Of course, I've been mayor, so I'm going to say that.
There we go. Yeah. Surprise.
Any mayor's going to say that. But I really do. I think that's kind of been lost in the discussion. 15,000 more people are working now than just 2.5 years ago. $13 billion of development going on. St. Jude's, ServiceMaster, FedEx at their super hub. Momentum is on our side. #1 city for black-owned business, top 5 for women-owned business. So I think we have to recognize that we've done some really good things. We've come up with the community builder pilot that helped bring a grocery store into a former Kroger that had closed. So I'm proud of what we did. But I'm also open to improving things. We need to do better, all of us in the economic development sphere. And there are a lot of parties. But I think the thing that I'm going to focus on is the broader picture. Workforce development is the #1 issue in America on economic development. That can't be lost.
So who, and that's a big part of economic development. Who should lead the charge on workforce development? The Chamber has a role in that. There's part of that that's under EDGE. You've talked about a lot, but who is the point person for workforce development?
Well, we are working behind the scenes to get all parties behind a plan, instead of, frankly, debating it via the media. So I'm not going to give that right now, but we're working behind the scenes to bring the Chamber, County, City Council, County Commission all together behind a plan, and we're in the midst of that right now.
Bill, sorry.
But overall, as mayor, I'm the one who's held accountable by the public. It's not EDGE, it's not the Chamber, it's the mayor's position. So in this whole process, I think you'll see our administration getting more involved.
Okay, Bill.
What do you hear about fees that EDGE charges, because the Council Ad Hoc Committee has been looking at this, and they haven't come to any conclusions as a group. But part of the discussion in the last meeting was that perhaps city and county government could subsidize EDGE to some degree, and then EDGE could drop those fees that apparently we've been hearing a lot about from site consultants.
I've been involved for 2.5 years in economic development. I've had one company mention the fees, one, and that was in the last 2 months. I don't think that's an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do away with it, that's how EDGE funds their operations. Then the taxpayers would have to fund those operations, and we got to focus taxpayer dollars on core basic services like police, fire, libraries, community centers. So I don't think it's an issue, and using taxpayer dollars to do it, I think, is when they're not plentiful, is a concern.
Should there be public input on whoever is chosen as the new president and CEO of the Greater Memphis Chamber?
No.
Even though the Chamber takes this public role, the people who've advocated for that, Mayor Harris has brought it up on the county side, other people have talked about it. The Chamber plays this very public role in terms of steering companies into Memphis, steering companies into public incentives, lobbying and working for various public initiatives. So they have a very public role. And I say I'm a member of our company is a member of the Chamber. So, but there are critics out there who say it's almost a quasi-public entity. So shouldn't the public have some input on it?
No, they're a private entity. The Daily Memphian plays a very public role, but the public should not pick who the editor or publisher
No, they
or the
shouldn't.
writers are. So it's a private entity.
Your relationship with Lee Harris, we were talking a little before the show. You were on council with
Yes.
Lee Harris for 2-3 years. We were trying to get
Yes.
at least 2 years. He is now, what, a month or so into his office. How much do you communicate with him, and how much are you trying to be aligned with one another in your efforts?
We're working very hard to align ourselves, and just like we did with Mayor Luttrell. I've met with him several times. I think the relationship is important. I think we're going to have a really good relationship. Like as you said, we've known each other and worked together before. His CAO, Patrice Thomas, used to work over at City Hall, and I have great respect for her, great respect for Lee. I think it's going to be a good relationship. We had regular monthly meetings with Mayor Luttrell, and we're trying to work that into Mayor Harris's schedule. You know, the first couple of months are very busy for a new mayor, so I can understand that. But he's agreeable to that, so I think we're going to meet on a regular basis. And then when we need to, I met with him last week.
Okay, and that has always been one of the criticisms of divided government, of non-consolidated government, and that back to economic development or any kind of initiative that the state maybe that they have to make 2 phone calls. They got to call the mayor, the county mayor, and the city mayor, and the county mayor and the city mayor, and it creates these inefficiencies. Do you were you able to avoid those inefficiencies that people criticize are set up for under Mayor Luttrell and going forward with Mayor Harris?
I think for the most part, yes. Yeah, I'm for consolidation. It's not going to happen in our lifetimes. So I think we got to move beyond that and just do the best we can. And that's regular communication and trying to be on the same page. I don't, if I have a disagreement with Mayor Harris, I want to say that directly to him and not in a public manner. Same way, if he has some disagreement with me on a core issue, side issues, that's just human nature.
Yeah.
But so it just takes work.
Yeah. 15 minutes left. Bill.
At week's end, there is going to be a reactivation of sorts of the old Melrose High School in Orange Mound that the city is undertaking. I believe there are events on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday around the old Melrose School in Orange Mound, very much the centerpiece of that community. What are your hopes for that, and why is the city involved in that?
Our hopes are that there are really imaginative people out there with some resources to be able to envision a productive use of that building. It worked at the Tennessee Brewery several years ago. You open it up and people start looking at it and say, man, this is really cool. We could do this or that, and look what's going on down there right now. So in some ways you just open the door and let the public in. And we've got really good imaginative people, sharp business people, real community activists. And at the end of this weekend, hopefully there'll be some ideas about what that building could do. The building is a point of division in the neighborhood. And over the last couple of years, there's been a significant voice to tear it down because it's blight and dangerous. But there's also been probably an equally large group saying, no, let's save it and reuse it. This is a way to maybe bring both sides together and envision a way to build it up and remove the blight and find a good purpose for it.
Will people be able to go through it? And if they are, I'm assuming that it's structurally sound, at least in places.
I think in places, is my understanding, there are certain locations the public cannot go because it's not safe. But I don't know the exact details on that. But I'll be there.
And a larger plan for that community. Shelby County Schools has invested a lot of money in Dunbar Elementary, which is nearby, which is a school that originally the school system considered closing before saying, no, we're going to invest some money in it. So what are your administration's hopes for that area in terms of housing stock, in terms of just redevelopment?
Well, frankly, it's no different than other neighborhoods. If you look at Memphis, the momentum that I talked about, you can definitely see it in downtown and midtown and the Poplar Corridor. What we've got to do is grow that momentum in all parts of our city, north to Frazier, south to Orange Mound, and South Memphis. So that's what one of the purposes of Memphis 3.0 was, to reach out to every single neighborhood, find out what they envision their neighborhood to look like in 10, 15, 20 years, and try to expand the economic prosperity that we're having in so many other parts of the city into all parts of the city. We're focused on delivering core basic services, paving those roads and picking up the garbage. Our new garbage policy is going to take place here very shortly, and I hope that helps on the litter size too, but that's the curbside trash. Instead of calling it in and you have to pick it up, we promise to pick it up within 21 days. We pick it up every other week without a call.
This is yard waste or anything that's
curbside trash, the stuff outside the can.
There we go.
And that's going to help in every neighborhood. We want basically economic prosperity. You mentioned affordable housing. We're committed to expanding affordable housing, and Paul Young's got a plan. I think last year we increased the housing stock by 5,000 affordable housing units throughout the city. So that's a priority too. We got to get down into the neighborhood level, and people have pride in their neighborhoods. Orange Mound has an incredible history, and it should be honored, but it needs some work.
Paul Young, who's the Director of Housing and Community Development, which also brings, he's over the Fairgrounds Plan and the TDZ. Am I right that the TDZ borders extend in and around Melrose High School? Is that correct? The proposer, or down into that neighborhood to some degree?
To some degree.
To some degree. What is the status on the Fairgrounds TDZ?
Paul and his team have been meeting with the state administrators and getting it prepared for a vote by the State Building Commission by the end of this year. If it is not approved by the end of this calendar year, it will disappear and
forever. Because
forever.
that law, the whole TDZ plan is there are no more TDZs. This one was grandfathered in.
Correct.
As an active application. The Riverfront TDZ has happened.
Yes.
Okay, that was approved. So are you know, there was so much concern in the spring about, oh, there's going to be payback because of Confederate statues and the state legislature and state officials. Have you felt any payback at play in this Fairgrounds TDZ, or is it, what is the delay if it's not that?
No, there's been, as far as I know, there's been no payback on that. It's a big ask of the state for a TDZ because they're basically granting you 100% of the increase in state sales taxes. 100%. The increase in that area. So they're giving the city a lot of money. And they want to make sure it's a valid plan. Apparently, not all our two TDZs, downtown and Graceland, have been successful. That's not necessarily true with everyone across the state, and that's something we've learned. So they're looking at them very closely. For
those who've lost track, because there have been so many fairgrounds plans over the year, and I moderated a conversation with Mary Claire, and I forgot her last name, who works Boys, who is point person for this for Paul Young, and she walked through the history, which was actually kind of funny. Right. But right now, the plan that is before the TDZ is centered around youth sports. Yes. And volleyball, traveling teams, traveling sports. The Coliseum is just mothballed, not torn down, not developed in any way. What else in terms of is in that you want to highlight that's in that Fairgrounds TDZ? Well, we'll have more money to really invest in the Liberty Bowl. The press box side, that whole structure up there is very dated. And needs to be updated. The University of Memphis wants to do that, so this would give us some money to put in that. But the centerpiece is youth sports. My son played some competitive youth sports, and we traveled all over. And if you've never been involved, you don't know how crazy it is. Crazy in a good way, but it's what we're focused. My daughter did it, and I'm not so sure it was crazy in a good way, but it is. If people haven't seen it, you don't realize what an incredible sort of industry it is. And we're focused on indoor sports, basketball, track, cheerleading, volleyball, and people will travel all over the region to go to big sport. And we don't have one facility in Memphis to do it. So it really makes sense that we could be a leader in this and really bring, and with the TDZ, the T stands for tourist. So we have to build something that would bring tourists in.
And then when the tourists aren't using it for their tournaments, then the community can use it. And I imagine this building will be used almost every day of the year, other than like Christmas.
At one point, just to clear, there was talk of a huge amount of retail space, almost a mall of sorts, and so what sort of commercial space is sketched into this?
I think it's a little bit of commercial and a hotel. All that has been drastically reduced from the old plan 10 years ago. I think the Great Recession had part of that to do with it, and retail is just not the same as it was 10 years ago.
5 minutes left, Bill.
All right, and as for the Coliseum, some of the discussion has been that with youth sports there and some new activity on the site, that's where a future use for the Coliseum might emerge that we're not thinking of now.
Absolutely. No one has brought an idea forward that makes it financially viable to reopen the Coliseum and put a bunch of money into rehab it and then operating it. But just like Old Melrose, if you do something on the fairgrounds property, maybe somebody who's really inventive can think of some idea 5 years from now that we're not thinking of right now. So that's why, or a big reason why you don't try to tear it down now. Let's see what we can do there, build some interest, and just open it up to the imagination of entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm. The Central Avenue side would also change quite a bit because you're moving the fairgrounds football field that the high school teams use and the track over to where it's next to youth sports.
Yes.
And Central Avenue's some pretty significant frontage from a commercial real estate point of view.
Right, and that's where the retail and hotel would be up toward that area. That football field and track are used very frequently. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to do away with that permanently. We would just move it on another part of the property. But because it'd be the most enticing place for any retail, that's why you'd want to move it.
And since, as your administration has been discussing this, Shelby County Schools has been talking about moving to a new headquarters, has closed on a location on Jackson Avenue. So is the place where Shelby County Schools is currently headquartered at Hollywood and Avery, is that something that could become part of the fairgrounds plan, or is that something that might be an offshoot of it?
Yes, it might be. We are very interested in that property. It's going to be a while, though, before the schools move out of that because they have to remodel the facility and put some money over in Jackson. So I don't know exactly, but my guess is they're a couple years away from being out of that building. But we are very interested in that property to make it part of the whole fairgrounds project. What would be put there, I don't know yet.
There have been a number in the last month, since you've last been on, but just to say in the last month, one if not two in Memphis, officer-involved shootings. One that got a lot of attention, there were 3 officers, all of their cameras were turned off. When you hear that there's been an incident and the cameras have been turned off, what is your reaction?
Well, first of all, not all their cameras were turned off. So when the investigation gets done, you'll see the exact thing. But I think we disappointed that any camera would not be used. We want 100% compliance, but police, roughly cameras have been used for about 2 years. In-car cameras and body-worn cameras. Memphis Police Department has taped 3.5 million interactions with the public during that time. 3.5 million. And there's 50 or 60 times when the cameras were not on for some reason. That's a success rate of about 99.99999%. Cameras have been successful. We want 100% success, and we're working toward that. But you got to put it all in context. Think about it. Nashville does not have body cams yet. And we implement them. That was one of the big things we did in our first year in office. We implement them. And when you look at it, not only are the officers using them, but the complaints against officers have drastically been reduced.
And when you talk about the investigation of what happened with this officer-involved shooting, because I think you'd agree that is a different level than a traffic stop, certainly,
yes.
Obviously. That investigation is being conducted by whom, and where are you on the question of the TBI being involved in all officer-involved shootings statewide?
All right, there's 2 investigations going on. There's a criminal investigation, and TBI is leading that criminal investigation. And then there's an employment investigation, policies of the city, and the Memphis Police Department is leading that investigation. It will be done prior to the criminal investigation. And for my opinion, I think any serious injury that involves a officer-involved shooting should be investigated by the TBI. To me, the only holdup is the TBI having the capacity to do that.
And with just 30, 40 seconds left, the surveillance trial that talked about the police's use of Facebook and social media and monitoring people. What did you learn anything and change anything as a result of that trial and things that came out in that trial?
Sure, two things we learned. Number one, that almost every single law enforcement agency in the country was doing what the Memphis Police Department did. Almost every single one of them. Second thing is, the judge said we should not do it because we're unique. We have this court order, and we are complying with the order.
All right, I cut you off and didn't give enough time on that, but thank you, and thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Join us again next week.